Welcome, friends, to Farm Fresh Designs 59. Are you ready for some easy French-inspired decor hacks? So if you are, stick around. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Myra, and if you're returning, thank you so much for your support. So let's get started on our first project today. My first piece is a little planter that I thrifted, and it has that black base with some little gold legs, and I'm going to cover up that middle section, and then I'll paint all over. So I'm starting out with the Birdsong mold by AOD. And if you've not used clay before, it's so easy. You just put some cornstarch in your molds, and then you press out your clay into that mold. And then I like to go back over it with an old gift card and smooth out the back, and it just pops right out. Now, these two birds are not mirror images, but they're on the same mold and they go together really well. So between those two birds, I'm going to be using just a little decorative heart in the IOD mold called Cameo, and I'll be putting that in between those two birds. Now, when I put my molds down, I use Tight Bond Thick and Quick, which comes in a gray and blue bottle, and I get that at Walmart. And it really does hold those molds down pretty quick. Now, after it's set up about 10 to 15 minutes, I like to go ahead and start painting my molds with a very gentle brush with just soft tapping motions. And this is a Waverly color, and it's called Dusk, and I also get that at Walmart. First, I paint over all of the molds, and then later on, I will go back and I will paint the entire planter with that same Waverly chalk paint in the color Dusk. Now, because this little planter has been thrifted, it's got some knocks and some dings on it. So what I go back and do is paint back over those little black sections, and I paint all on the inside of it. Now, I do have to admit, you might see it in some of the pictures, I thought about putting some molds on the back, and after I got them all on and I painted them, I just didn't like them. But I was able to take them off really easy and then sand down those areas so you can't see it at all. Now, I did not go back and paint that gold because I was happy with what was on it right then, and it didn't have any little dings on that. Now, this planter is not made out of wood. I'm sure it's like MDF board, so this isn't something that you would put a little plant in. And first I start off with some Dixie Belle white wax, and I go over it really heavy. And once I get it put all on, then I'm going to wipe it back with a soft shop towel. Now, once I finished all of this, and it sat around for about a week, and I looked at it, I just didn't feel like that white wax was enough. So I actually went in and dry brushed very lightly some white paint over on those molds. And now I love the way that it turned out. So what do you think? It is perfect for maybe a bathroom or a guest bathroom, and just have something to have some pretty little towels and washcloths in and some pretty soaps for your guest. And this planter is actually small enough to where this could be something you could keep in the kitchen and just throw your keys in it and maybe your mail. So my next project is going to be a little candlestick that I've had for quite a while, and I think I actually bought this at Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to go ahead and put a lot of different molds on it. And first I start off with the little clock that comes from the Cameo mold that actually I forgot to film that, and I've already glued that on. And then I'm going to be putting on some pieces from the IOD mold called Dainty Flourishes. Now, the molds on this are rather skinny, so sometimes when you just try to pop them out, sometimes because they're so skinny, sometimes they will break off. So the solution to that is put that mold in the freezer for about 10 minutes, and it makes those molds hard enough and kind of sets them up a little bit so that once you take them out and you glue them on, it adds a little bit of stiffness to it. But once it comes to room temperature, it's not stiff anymore, and it goes back to being what the clay was like initially. Now these first pieces are just a little bit too long, so with that little gift card, I just kind of chop off the part that I don't want to use because I'm going to put it down at the bottom. And then I'm just playing around with those pieces to see which way I like them to go. And I'm not really putting them down in a particular way that I've seen, but with the IOD molds, they all work so well together that when you start putting all these molds, even from the different molds together, they all look like they go together because the IOD sisters do a really good job with their molds. And if you're new to IOD, or if you're wanting any IOD, I will share the links to these molds in the description box below. I will share my affiliate link with Decoupage Central. And she always keeps a great selection of the molds in stock. Within those little extra pieces that were a little bit thicker, I just put those down at the bottom. And when I put my molds on, I like to gently kind of tap around those outside edges to make sure that it's laying down really well. And then once again, after it's set up about 10 or 15 minutes, once again, I go back and paint it, because if you paint it early on, it really does help reduce the cracking of the clay. And if you put down molds and you're not sure what color you are going to paint them, you can just go ahead and paint them white or maybe an off-white color, and then have that paint on them to kind of protect them a little bit until you do decide what color you're going to be using. Now, because I'm going to be putting molds on the other side of this little candlestick, I only paint over those molds and I let it set up for about 2 days, because I know that once I get ready to put those molds on the other side, I need that clay to already have gotten set up, because if I tried to put the molds on the other side right now, then it would have smushed those ones that I just finished doing. Now, this candlestick has got some paint on it that's kind of chippy, but I don't try to, put salt wash on it or anything like that. I just go ahead and paint it. And it's just a little bit rough, but I'm okay with that. So I've got all that painted and it's set up for a couple days, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to put some more molds on the other side. And once again, I pull out my Dainty Flourishes again, and I use some of the same molds plus some of the other ones. And once again, if you'll just set it in the freezer for about 10 minutes, it sets them up enough to where they come out really easy and they're less likely to break off. And now, one of the things that I did do is when I decided to kind of like cut off one part of it, I held it up to the little mirror image of it so I could make sure that I cut those pieces off at the same place. Now, on the middle of this one, I'm going to be using just a little circle that looks like a pendant, and I'm going to put that in the middle of it. But I'm going to mimic the molds that I put on the other side, and then I just use some little skinny pieces on the Dainty Flourishes to put all around the bottom. And this stamp comes from the IOD Apothecary labels, and I just stamp right into that clay with my initial. So yes, it's so easy to stamp into clay, and it's a lot of fun because it puts some detail into an image that might be sort of plain. And then once those molds have set up for about 10 to 15 minutes, now I go back and I paint the entire candlestick all over. And then once again, I pull out my white wax from Dixie Belle and I go over all the raised up areas. And once again, once I got ready to film, I just wasn't happy with the white wax. I thought it needed to be a little bit thicker. So once again, I just dry brushed some white paint over that to pull out those details. And I really love the way that it turned out. So what do you think? So before I show you the project, I want to show you something that I came up with. So this is just a thrifted book that I bought, and it's just white. That's all I wanted. And it actually turned out to be a book that I wanted to read. So once again, I'm using the Waverly chalk paint in the color Dusk, and I paint all over it. And actually, once I finish this all the way, I'm actually going to take it back to the thrift shop all decorated and just let somebody else buy it thrifted, but have a really pretty outside. Now I'm using the new IOD stamp set called Guarded Bouquet. And what I love about the IOD stamp sets is they come with masks. So what you want to do is the flower that I want to stand out the most, I'm going to stamp that one first. And I'm going to go with it all over with the little ink pad. And then I wipe around the little edges of it. And then I'm going to lay it onto that book. I'm going to lay it straight down. And then I use this little tool that I bought off of Amazon to push that stamp down. But then when I finish stamping it and transferring that ink onto the book, I pull the stamp set straight up. And I'm also using one of the IOD little mats that you can get that has the grid lines on it. And that helps when you're trying to line different things up. And with my stamps, I like to go ahead and wipe them off with a baby wipe before I take them back into the sink later on and kind of rinse them off a little bit more with some soap. And when I do that, I use like an old toothbrush to kind of clean out maybe any little ink that has settled into the crevices. Now, with this different little mold, I go ahead and decide where I'm going to lay them down. And then I will go ahead and put them on the back of that thin mount grid. But before I do, I go ahead and lay that mask down that looks like what I just stamped. I lay it down on top of it, and that covers it up. So I lay that stamp down, lay it down so that it'll catch onto the thin mount. And of course, it pulls that little mask up. So I'll lay it back down. And then, once again, I ink it up, and I lay it down, and I rub all over it. And then I'm going to pull it straight up. And then that way, it is not going to ink over that first little set of flowers. And then I have one more little floral that I want to put over there in the corner. And then I'm done with the stamping. But the masks make it so easy to do so that you don't mess up the big old flower. And also remember, with the ink, if you kind of smear it just a little bit, but not a whole bunch, you can either use a baby wipe to wipe it back off real quick, or you can just paint over your little mistakes. Now, this mold is one of the new IOD molds that came out, I believe, in the spring, and it's called Conservatory Labels. So I make a mold that's going to be long enough for the title of the book, and I pull out my Apothecary Labels stamp set, and I just push that into the clay and put the name back onto that little mold that's going to be on the front. And then I paint it with that blue again. And then I use the white wax on it. And then I also decide to dry brush white over it. And I just love the way it turned out. And I'm excited to be able to take it back to the thrift shop just like this. So they'll probably put it back on the bookshelves. And then somebody's going to come by and think, oh my goodness, what a beautiful book. And isn't that going to be fun to just know that I brought like some sunshine to somebody else's day? And I just love this candlestick. I think it's so pretty. And you just can take a plain old candlestick and just put all sorts of molds on it. And it just really makes it so elegant. Now, this little stool has actually been my granddaughter's that she used at her desk this summer. But now that she's in school, it kind of gives me a chance to paint it. So I'd already painted the top of it because I needed to spray it with clear sealer because I'm going to be putting a transfer on in just a few minutes. But I went on and painted the legs before I put the transfer on it. And I'm just painting it with Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. And this big old clock comes from an older transfer that is actually still available, and it's called the IOD Brocante stamp. And it has the most beautiful transfers inside of it. In fact, over the years, I probably have bought 3 different books of this stamp set. Make sure that you look it up because it's got such pretty transfers in it. And it's just perfect for this little stool. But when you put that transfer on, you paint it, you seal it before you put the transfer on. You put the transfer on, and then you use a little plastic piece to kind of burnish it up, make sure all the little pieces are laying down, and then you seal it again. Now, this stool would also be pretty in a guest bathroom to lay over beside the tub to just have those little extra supplies ready for when your guest gets ready to go take a bath. So for my next project, it's so easy that you need to look before you blink because it's going to go by really fast. This is a basket that I thrifted and I love it. But I don't want to paint it. I don't want to do anything to it. So I just stuck some green paper in it. And these are just some florals that I already had. And I just stuck them in it. And then I had a little bit of lavender, which is sort of something that you would think that you would put in a French vignette. And I just put those in. And then I'm done. So easy, but so pretty. And this could also be hung on the door handle. And this is something that you'll see Julie's from Julie's Designs and Signs. She loves to use baskets like this and maybe hang them on a hook at the back door. But I just think it's just very simple and very elegant. So friends, here's everything that I made today. In the comments below, make sure and let me know what is your favorite. And in just a minute, I'm going to be announcing the winners of the giveaways that I talked about and shared in my video this past Monday. So for those names that are going to pop up on the screen, I'm going to leave you a message on your particular comment and tell you what you need to do so that I can go ahead and get your giveaway mailed to you. And I'm also going to list it in the community tab, which if you go to my channel, you look over to the right and click community. And I'm also going to make the announcement there. So just in case you don't go back and make a comment, then you'll see it on my community tab as well. So thank you so much for all, entering the giveaway. It was a lot of fun, and I just wanted to bless you back because you've all blessed me so much. So here we go with the names. They're going to pop up on the screen. Look for your name, and if you are, make sure to go back to your comment because I'm going to be leaving you some instructions. So if you enjoyed the video today, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and become part of our family. And I will see you in my next video. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed week. Thank you, friends.